Hello fellow coders, it's PewDiePie and welcome to another video. And in today's video, we are going to talk about app making and my journey of making an entire app. Yes, to make this video, I spent 1 month making my app. It is live on the App Store. Madewise, go check it out, link in the description. But stop it. Don't drop off. I see people dropping off the video right after the intro. Like guys, if you have clicked it by mistake, now you can't do anything. Just keep your phone or laptop, anything aside, do whatever you want to do if you don't want to watch and keep it rolling guys. So let's get started. So in today's video, I wanted to share my journey and I wanted to help you guys if you want to, start your app making journey. So how you should go about it. I will cover everything from idea to when I was uploading my app to App Store. How was the journey? How I figured like I want to make an iOS app and not an Android app, and what are the lessons I learned in between, from monetization to everything. Yeah, it will be a fun one. Let's get started. So the first thing, so how do you go about deciding an idea, what you want to make? So whatever I learned online by watching few more people, reading a lot of blogs on X, I read through them, I went through their experiences and figured that first thing is choose an idea that you would like to use, because then you are the target customer and you can, tune the app accordingly. For my case, for example, I made an app called Madewise and it is like an household attendance and payout tracker, which is our problem because we live alone. We don't rigorously track everything, and at the end of each month we don't know what were the absent days, what were the present days, and we would not even remember like what are the advances we gave her or not. So yeah, and one more thing which is like a disaster management, I would just say that for the last house help we didn't even remember her name, full name. And we were like, okay, we just shifted, we just want to call her, we don't remember her full name, we didn't even took her phone number, yet alone if anything bad happened, we didn't even had her Aadhaar card photograph or anything. We just had her first name. So this is a big problem. Even she or he had some problem in our house, who to contact? So these type of emergency numbers also. So yeah, I wanted an app to track everything and keep this logged in. So I made my personal problem into the idea, and that's why how I decided on my idea. The second tip is just like a cautionary tale. I have listened a lot of things online that if you're making an AI app right now, because it is in the hype that to make an AI app, beware. If you're using, dabbling with API keys and everything, you need to be very secure because there are a lot of people who misuse your API keys. You don't want to leak them on the app. Or the biggest risk, like you don't want someone to, just endlessly burn through your tokens. You need to put in checks and everything if you're making an AI related app. So if you're making your first app, it would be advised just to avoid AI related apps. And if you're even like making an AI app, then keep in mind that you need to make it extra secure so that no one can misuse it, or you will get $1 million bill at the end of a month. So yeah, this is somewhat around ideas. I would love to hear your ideas in the comment section. Maybe someone can help you out, and if you want, we can also discuss this in the forum. Moving on. So now next step is you have the idea, you have the app. Now what to do? Now you need to scope it out. So scoping means, I will just say, figure everything related to the app out. That who do you want to serve it to? So for example, if you want to, publish it to a Android user, or you want to publish this to only the iOS users, who you want your end customer to be. So for example, for Madewise, I was just targeting tier 1 to tier 2 cities who would use something like this. And first, another thing was that I didn't have a Android phone to test on, so I just had iOS. And not just about the target customer, you can also go from the features you want to deliver. So for example, in my app, I wanted to make a widget. It was a big thing that I wanted to track the attendance through the widget, and I wanted a notification system that it should remind me on my Apple Watch and everything. So what I read online is that things like this, like for example, liquid class, widget management, all of these tools are not available in frameworks like Expo, which is a React based framework. And if you want these type of use cases in your app, then the only thing you can choose is, Shift UI or the native things. This is also you would keep in mind when selecting your tech stack and everything. Another thing is, if you want to use databases, then a big go-to choice for everyone was Supabase. So I also use that for my app. It could be for anything. Like if I wanted to synchronize the data between households and flatmates, basically someone put in the attendance, then you want to see that attendance popped up in your app also. So I use that. Supabase for hosting your websites and everything. Yes, that is also something you need to keep in mind, because when you are publishing your app, the app stores require you to publish a website also where people can contact you for support, contact you for terms and service or privacy policy and everything. You need to make a website available for that. So for that, I was using Vercel, which was free. And yeah, this is like a general tech stack that everyone was following. So I also picked up this. Once you have done your, like, what do you want to make, how do you want to make, what is the tech stack and everything, now comes how do you want to make. So a pretty clean thing I would just say, even if you're vibe coding it, is to first design your app how you want the UX and UI to feel. Just keep it in your mind, and if possible draw it on a paper or an iPad, and you can just take the screenshot and send it to your agent. So for example, I was using anti-gravity, but people can use Cloud Code or Codex, anything. All of them are great. Just use anything. I was using anti-gravity, and I used to paste the photographs I took from different apps. So for example, I like the UI in WhatsApp, for example. So I took a screenshot and I sent it to the coding agent and I asked to recreate this. Another thing I would quickly suggest is, like, if you're coding, before even starting to code, first finalize a design file. It will make your life so much easier. Give everything related to designing in that file. So for example, you can put in the text of the fonts, the sizes you want to use, the highlighting features. Like for example, I want to use green for highlighting, red for highlighting, anything, or any kind of pattern or motif you want to use throughout the app or anything, or what is the general philosophy of your app. Everything can go into that design.md, and if you can just say that, okay, make an onboarding page using that design md, so it will make your life so much better. It will be consistent throughout. So this is another tip if you are making this. So just to reiterate, if you are after the scoping and everything, the baseline, what you want to make, you can finally, when you go to coding, first finalize the designing part, the look and feel, the text and everything of the tool. Then you can use that to quickly write the code. Another thing is, because see, I don't want to go deeper into the coding part, because coding is pretty much sorted. You can just ask any coding agent to do it. All these things that I am telling you, like for example design.md, or I will tell you another, is to make your life easier while you are vibe coding your app. The second thing is, I made a SDLC skill which I wanted. So if you prompt the a coding agent to make a big feature, for example, I asked the agent to make a attendance tracker at the very start. I just asked, like, make a attendance tracker, and it is a big thing. If in your mind it is like a small page, just a element, but it is internally, it is a very big thing. So I can ask the coding agent to make a epic.md, and it made a epic.md using my prompt, that what is the general direction or the goal I want to achieve. And on basis of that epic.md, it will then break it down into stories, and each story will have the scope, the testing, the points and everything. And each of that story now will be executed by a different agent, sub agent, and then it is a way cleaner build overall. And it takes into account a lot of things, because each story point has its testing and points and nuances and risk. So I got a much better output when I shifted to this pattern instead of just directly prompting and reiterating again and again. Okay, so one thing I learned while making this app is, like, for example, my mother wanted to use my app, but she couldn't because the UI was not intuitive to her. Because I thought that, okay, I have created something crazy, people are going to use this a lot. But we often underestimate how much mental power people give to app. They will rather just use whatever they have learned, and that's why people just keep on copying the UX design from bigger apps. If you are not able to figure out how your UX or UI should look, just copy any other big app. So for example, Google Pay is like a app which is well designed for everyone, and they have literally given $1 billion to their UX designer to make it accessible to all. And people have they have learned the language around it. So use it. Use WhatsApp or use Facebook or Instagram. Use the design languages from those apps, and you will be far better instead of reinventing the wheel. Another thing is color palettes and everything. It will also make or break your product, because no one wants to use a bad looking product. Everyone gravitates to a nice icon, a nice typography or nice UI. So give some time to this also. Go to colors.io or some website like that. You can find a lot of palettes there. Go to Canva, maybe they have a lot of templates and you can just copy the fonts and everything from there. Yeah, so these are some helpful tips around it. Okay, so now you have finalized what you want to code, how do you want to code it, you have everything written down. So now when do you stop? This is also a point where I did mess up, because when I started to make an app, I just thought that, okay, I want to make everything. I want to make the monetization also work from the day one. So that is not how you should approach things. I would say if you're making a new app for the first time, try to think of a free app idea so that you can learn all one thing at a time. Because if you want to monetize, so for example, I wanted to monetize my app with ads. So to make ads, you need to connect it to Google Ad Mob, which is like a mobile advertisement product from Google. If you can use InMobi also, that is also something I heard, but Google Ad Mob is fine. Then make a paywall. For example, if you want to make a subscription, then you can use Revenue Cat, things like that. And then you need to set up the subscriptions also on the Apple App Store Connect page. We will come to this later, all the infrastructure stuff. But all of this adds another layer of complexity that you can avoid if you don't want to. So that is why I'm saying that I did this mistake. It was a lot of, complexity, and it made my life a bit tougher. Just, I could have just posted my app for free, and then iteratively I could have added the ads, then the paywall and everything. Now my app doesn't have a paywall because my app is not getting approved. I will come to this. So this was one of the mistakes. Don't make the scope too broad. Try to make a MVP first. That's what I meant. Okay, so now we have come a long way. We have the idea, we have the coding, we have the MVP, we have done everything. Now it's time to push our app. You can find the tutorials for most of them, like App Store and Google Play Store. Both of them, they are available. In this video, I wanted some experience, how you should approach it, how you should start your journey on this. So both of them are paid. For Apple, it is $10,000, 10,000 rupees per year. It's like a subscription for Apple developer account, and then you can submit your app on App Store. And for Google also, it's like a one-time payment, or you can look into it how much it costs right now, and then you can publish your app on App Store. For both the platforms, you need to first push your code. There are different steps for both the platforms, but for both of them, you need to push your app to them, then submit your app for some testing, and they will test it, and then they will push it to the App Store. Now it sounds very easy, then it is. Especially the App Store one, it is pretty strict, and you can listen all the horror stories online. So let's talk about the App Store submission process. I was trying to submit my app on the iOS App Store, and it was a hell. Let's just put it that way. It was getting rejected right, left, and center. I would just suggest you should also, when you code your app, at the end of that, you can just ask your coding agent to just make a checklist and make this app ready to be pushed to the app stores. So for example, I wanted to push it to the iOS App Store, so I just asked the coding agent inside the Xcode. So you do have access to a coding agent in Xcode also now, and I think Google also added in the Android Studio. So you can ask that agent to verify is there any problem, and then you can ask your native one, because the models are better there. So for example, I asked the Xcode one to list down all the problems where you find the problems, like in the apps which might be rejected. I took them and I pasted to the anti-gravity one, and it made the changes. That is good. So this is how you can sanity check your code. My app was published on the App Store after 1 or 2 back and forths, because it had some authentication related to issues. For authentication, I was using Supabase, which is free. So I was getting some errors in that. So the authentication was breaking. That's why the testers were not able to go inside the app. After a few tweaks, I got it working. I pushed it again, and it got submitted. But the problem which came haunting me was that in my published app, the advertisement and the revenue cat was not working. I did the connections. In my head, I did everything right, but it was not working. It was a lot of back and forth of like clicking a screenshot and then sending it to Gemini or Claude to check like what to click, how to click. This is the error and this is the thing. That is why I was saying that you can avoid all of this initially, like to first get an experience. Yeah. The problem in Revenue Cat was that my paywall was working on the Revenue Cat. My SDK was connected nicely in the app code, and the problem was that I didn't submit the subscription on the App Store Connect. So basically, my app which was published had no in-app purchases approved by Apple. That's why Revenue Cat didn't have any metadata to show, and it didn't. It was just showing an error in the app. And yeah, it is still not fixed because I tried fixing it, but then my app got rejected for some other code related issue. So I just said, okay, this is not that important. The Revenue Cat paywall, I don't want to. The users are not that much on the app, so I just avoided it for now. I will fix it if the users demand that I want a app ad-free version. Then I will just fix it and it should be working. Okay, so these were the small things. Another thing I wanted to highlight on your app journey is that if you're making an app which is related to finances or storing your data, then you need to go deeper in the legalities of storing those data. So for example, my app is live in all over the world. It's in US, it's in EU, and it's also in India. So you need to be aware of all the data norms, which are, for example, in EU, it is a very strict data norm which is called GDPR. You need to be aware of that. In India also, there is some data processing act, something like that. So you need to be aware of that. All of this you can ask from an AI agent. They will guide you very nicely. But you need to be aware. You need to be constantly asking, and you need to be aware of this legality. For example, if you are making a finance app or you are storing any government data, for example, in my app, I said that I am storing an Aadhaar card of the maids. Then how do you store that data? So I am not storing that data on cloud for a reason. I am not storing it in the Superbase. I am storing it in the phone. And once you delete the app, the Aadhaar card data is gone. Basically, the government IDs are not leaving the user's device. That's why it is not my problem and it is out of the scope. This is how you can tackle few of the situation. For example, if you're making a finance related app, then you need to be aware, like how do you want to, you need to encrypt the names of the user or something like that you need to do to store the data and process it further. So this is also something you need to keep in mind. If you are having games or any kind of loot boxes or anything which can be identified as a lottery, or for example a gamification of, basically it's like gambling, any type of gambling in your app, then you need to be aware of that also. So all these things you need to, App Store are very strict. You need to publish all of this information on the App Store Connect page. When you will submit your app, they will ask you a questionnaire. It will have a lot of answers. Yeah, but it is better to keep in mind while you select the idea, because if you are knee deep, if you have literally coded and everything, and then you are facing these problems, I think this is something to be kept in mind while you're deciding on the idea. So you can either decide at the idea stage, I want to deal with this or not. Yes, this was my entire journey of my publishing an app. What are the lessons if you want to go and publish your app also? And one more thing is that there are still a lot of things which I am also figuring out. Like for example, the small business program. I didn't know that Apple ran a small business program which reduced the cost from 30% to 15% of in-app purchases. But that is also something to keep in mind. You can go online and search for that. And a lot of things, it's like a whole new different domain and field. That's why we have iOS developers or Android developers. But yeah, if you're just making a vibe coded app and you want to publish the app on the store, it is not that straightforward as it looks on the X or Reddit, anything. But I would seriously say, if you have listened to the entire video and now you are aware of the problems, and now you can be well prepared for these problems, you can, at the coding stage, you can make the website, the terms and conditions and everything. At the submission stage, you can upload the things, whatever necessary, you will have them. So that is what I'm saying, that it's not that straightforward, but it is learnable. And after the first app, I am surely that in your second or third app, you will be breezing past all of these barriers. But yeah, the app coding and vibe coding thing is pretty fun. I will try to make another app also. I enjoyed seeing that name, developer Yash Bhandari, on the App Store. So yeah, if you have any questions, anything I missed, anything you wanted me to cover, you can just comment in the comment section and I will check it out. And I'll see you in the next one. So stay healthy, stay fresh, be human.